And now, Rob on the Road, exploring Northern California.
This is exciting, and I am thrilled to have our guest on today's program at Rob at Home. Dan Morain has been a journalist covering Northern California and Southern California for about 40 years. Now, Dan has a book which is international. It is Kamala's Way, and it is about the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, of course, from California. It is so good to see you, Dan, joining us from your home in Davis.
Well, thanks a lot for inviting me along.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here on Rob at Home. And first of all, I have to just talk to you about the book. Wow, what a huge get.
We sort of thought that the Biden-Harris ticket was going to win, but we weren't, obviously we're not sure. The goal was to produce it before inauguration, and so that meant I was on a really tight deadline. Basically started it in September and finished it on November 3rd, election night, handed in the final chapters and went downstairs and watched the returns.
My goodness, that is a fast turnaround, and it seems like a natural fit that you were tapped to do this because of your extensive coverage of California, particularly on the editorial side, 8 or 9 years with the Sacramento Bee editorial page, which that in itself is huge, as well as 27 years with the Los Angeles Times, but you were still based in Northern California reporting for the LA Times, correct?
Yeah, much of that time. I also worked in LA for the LA Times, and before that, the Herald Examiner in LA, and then based in San Francisco for the LA Times. You know, it is the case that it was really an intense 2 months, September, October, and beginning of October, to produce it. But and although the title is Kamala's Way, An American Life, it really is a California story. And I mean, you know, Rob, you read the book, and so many of the stories are that I cite are stories that I covered over the decades, or that colleagues, friends of mine at the Times or the Chronicle or Sacramento Bee or other papers covered over the decades, but that I was aware of or a part of covering. So it really is a California story. You know, I'm a California journalist. I don't presume to know the ways of Washington, D.C. I sort of know how Sacramento works. And it's about a Californian, Kamala Harris. So I view her as a transitional person. She was born in a transitional time in California, 1964, and think about what was going on in the 1960s and in Berkeley, where she grew up, in Oakland. You know, the start of the anti-war movement, the environmental movement, the really a hotbed for the civil rights movement. All that came together, plus all the great music that came out of the 60s in the Bay Area. But she's a transitional person in politics too. You know, the first woman of color to be the San Francisco District Attorney, the first woman of color to be the California Attorney General. And so she's, you know, so that's what she is, but it's also who she is, who she represents. I mean, this is a child of immigrant mom from India and dad from Jamaica. It's, to me, she's just she's a transitional person in a state that is known for its transition, and so much of what happens in California spreads east, and so I think that now that she's vice president, so much of what she has, well, the transition is really going national in a significant way. She's going to be part of the national stage for at least the next 4 years. She's certainly going to run for president. Do
you think she will be?
Do I think she will be president? You know, it's so hard to be president. I think
it's also impossible to predict, as we have seen.
Yeah, I think she could be. she ran for president, obviously, in 2019. That did not go well. She pulled the
But
pin.
your book discusses about how she planned along the way for the vice presidency to be tapped for that.
Yeah. Well, she wasn't running for second place. She was running to win. Once she realized she wasn't going to win, she pulled out, win the nomination. Once she realized she wasn't going to get the nomination, she pulled out. She pulled out early, and then went about her work being a United States senator. And she was obviously positioned to be a vice presidential candidate, somebody who would be on anybody's short list. And then, the politics were such. Joe Biden had said that he was going to pick a woman, so that narrowed the field by half. And then George Floyd died under the knee of a Minneapolis cop, and that really changed politics. And so it became more important, I think, that he choose a person of color, a woman of color, and really there were very few who could have been the vice president. Stacey Abrams is one, certainly, from Georgia. Susan Rice, who's in the Biden-Harris administration. And then, of course, Congresswoman Karen Bass of Los Angeles. But then Kamala Harris, and she was the only one who had run statewide and won. She was the only one who had run for the presidency and therefore had been vetted by other candidates and candidates, opposition researchers, and certainly by journalists. So she became sort of the logical choice.
And she was a friend of the president's late son, and that carries a lot of weight, not just because they were friends,
right,
but because of the character of Beau Biden.
Yeah. Well, you're so right. So Joe Biden has referred to that when he chose Kamala Harris, referred to her friendship, it started, they were both attorneys general, he in Delaware, she in California. They were on the same side in major litigation against the big banks. So that's where their alliance started, and then it grew into a friendship. They went on, and this is not in the book, but I know that they became very engaged after the awful massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary School, talking nationally about gun control. That was obviously a huge, big issue to Vice President Biden. But Beau Biden and Kamala Harris made joint appearances talking about the need to do something about the proliferation of guns. So yeah, they became friends, and Biden came out here and came out to California in 2016 when Harris was running for U.S. Senate, and made clear to the California Democratic Party in a speech there that I attended that he was supporting Harris for the U.S. Senate, and he opened the speech by talking about Beau Biden's friendship with Kamala Harris and what that meant to him. So Beau Biden had been dead for about a year, less than a year then. So yeah, that mattered a lot. She, her relationship and his admiration for her, which is what Joe Biden has talked about.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you, before we move on from the topic of the vice president, did you ever think all along the way, covering her all these years, or seeing all the articles and reading things throughout the past couple of decades, did you ever think that she would be on such a large national platform? Mm-hmm.
Well, having covered politics for all these years, I've seen a lot of really impressive politicians come through California, come through Sacramento. I've helped cover a presidential campaign or two along the way. She is talented. She, she's ambitious. She's smart. She's tough. Yeah, of course. You could well see her rising. I guess I was naive and sort of blissfully ignorant, but said, yeah, sure, I can write a book in 2 months. Why not?
Anyway. I love that. You sent me lots of several articles from your career, And I noticed a through line in all of those articles. And they may not be in the headline, but they were definitely in the heart, the matter of the story, and about mental health care and mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, I feel that's an important topic to you as a person. And you shared with me that it is.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to talk with you about that and the book that you really want to write.
Yeah. Well, so when, like I say, I was, sort of blissfully retired and taking long dog walks and that sort of thing, and seeing grandkids and hanging out with my wife, who I haven't seen enough of in the last 40 years. But I was working on sort of a personal memoir, but also a policy book when Kamala Harris fell into my lap. So my brother, when he was a few months shy of age 22, got in a terrible car accident. Single car, drove off the road going too fast, I'm sure as many 21, almost 22-year-old men do. And he bashed his head. And so he had a really serious brain injury. My mother, who was a nurse, tried to take care of him at home. That didn't work. And so he went through a series of boarding homes. This was in 1969.
And you were how old at the time?
I was 14. So I was
14.
His little brother. Mm-hmm. So he went to a series of boarding homes and private nursing homes, and none of it worked. He could never, he was just too disabled to be able to function. He would fall asleep with a cigarette and start a fire. And one of the impacts of the kind of brain injury he had, which was smashing his frontal lobe, is to lose impulse control. So he would say really inappropriate things at times. And he was just a handful, big guy, 6'2", but certainly not a violent guy at all. But he would say inappropriate things, and other residents who were less than mentally stable would take umbrage and punch him out and this sort of thing. Anyway, it was a very tough time. So anyway, one thing led to another, and my parents were able to place him at Napa State Hospital. We grew up in San Mateo and Foster City. Place him at Napa State Hospital, and that was not the greatest place, but better than some of the places where they had tried to place him before. And he went to Camarillo State Hospital, which is now Channel Islands State College, their state university. And then back to Napa. And he was there through 1992, 1991, so about 20 years. And all this time, my mother died in 1980. This is probably more than you want to know. But anyway, so from 1980 through his death in 2000, I was his co-conservator with my father. And then when my father got too old, I was his conservator. So which meant that I had to take, I was the person to contact if he had a medical issue, or if, I was just, I was his care. I took care of him to the extent that I could, but it was really to make sure that he was safe in a safe place, a safe, secure place. So anyway, my experience with that, he died in, like I said, in 2000 of a seizure. My experience with that, I think gave me some insight into the mental health care system. He was brain injured. He wasn't schizophrenic, yet he was treated. He was diagnosed as schizophrenic. Bad diagnosis, obviously.
You said a bad diagnosis.
Well, yeah, he wasn't schizophrenic. He wasn't schizophrenic before he had his accident. He had a brain injury, but the injury sort of mimicked mental illness, and he was in state hospitals with clearly schizophrenic, mentally ill people. So,
and by the way, state hospitals, we know the situation of that today.
Mm-hmm.
They're gone.
Well, they're gone for people who are, for the most part, for civil commitments, and really now what they are is well, they're not prisons, they're still hospitals, but they're for people who have been deemed, not guilty by reason of insanity, or they can't stand trial because they're too mentally ill. So now
to navigate that process to get into somewhere like that is anyone who's dealt with trying to help someone who's struggling with mental illness. It is incredibly difficult, incredibly difficult to get someone help.
Right. Well, and so because I had this experience, I was able, I felt that like I had, a degree of empathy for what families go through. Certainly I know I know much of what my parents went through, not all of it, because I was a kid and then I was off at college and then I was off building a career and so I was, less engaged than they were. But it's just anyway, so I think it's a huge issue. It's a societal issue. I think we see it under freeways or along freeways. Not everybody who is homeless is mentally ill, but certainly a large percentage of them are. And I just think as a society, we have abdicated our responsibility, our collective responsibility to take care of these people who really cannot care for themselves. I mean, you think about you think about what people, what government should be doing. It should be taking care of those who cannot take care of themselves. You and I, or at least, we don't need much government. But there are people who clearly do. I do think Governor Newsom, Sacramento Mayor Steinberg care deeply about this issue and are trying to deal with it. But it's so complex and it's so costly. The laws are such that it is that make it even more complicated. Anyway, so that was the project that I had embarked upon, and it's the project that I want to return to once Kamala Harris is once my obligations related to Kamala Harris are lessened. So
what do you think, Dan? What is your goal of your next book? What do you want it to do in regard to mental illness?
Yeah, people have written about mental illness a lot. I don't know really that I can bring much more to it. We'll see. But I do think that there are stories that I've written over the decades that illustrate aspects of it. One of the pieces I did was about the nephew of former Congressman, former California Attorney General Dan Lundgren. His parents, Nancy and Brian Lundgren, are great people in Sacramento. They work tirelessly to try to help improve the mental health care system. I think that they have a really compelling story. The parents of Laura Wilcox, Amanda and Nick Wilcox, whose daughter Laura was tragically shot to death by a mentally ill guy who's now at Napa State Hospital. They turned their tragedy into their cause, which was gun control.
And the Lundgrens as well?
The Lundgrens are focused on mental health care. People turn their hardship and not everybody, but some people, it's just too much to deal with, right? It's really complicated to deal with people who are not who have a mental disability, brain dysfunction. So some people just can't deal with it. But I do find inspiration in what the Lundgrens did and what the Wilcoxes have done and other families. I mean, people who have attained no notoriety
It sounds like you're on the course to do the same thing with what you went through as well. And that is to take a serious life test and make it sort of a testimony, if you will, and try to, you said you don't know what could come out of a book, but yet I say, when you tell your story, you set other people free by making them feel so less isolated, and ultimately yourself.
Yeah, well, we'll see. There's no publisher for this one. No one is knocking at my door for this one. So we'll see where it goes. It's not an overnight project. It's going to take more than 2 months. So
I'm very curious to ask you that, we talked about the through line of the articles that I read, many dealing with mental health care. And I'm curious that as you look back over the last 4 decades, what has been your through line? What stories have been the most passionate to you, where you felt like you really could pour a piece of you into it?
Well, it's justice related issues. It's mental health care. And I did my share of pieces about, politicians who maybe weren't living up to their best selves. But really the ones that I think, the ones that I would, hope my grandkids read are the ones related to justice or injustice and mental health care or lack thereof. Those would be the ones.
I have to ask you your thoughts on journalism today, or what masks as journalism. News, entertainment, those words are very scary, in my opinion, when blended together, because people can turn to any platform somewhere that will fill their own beliefs. And that used to not be the case.
Yeah.
And I'm curious your thoughts as an insider of what you feel the ramifications of that have been, and how in the world do we get back to all of network truth telling, or was it ever there?
Yeah.
No, it is on PBS. I know that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. The one newscast that we don't miss is Judy Woodruff's. And
I do the same here, and I would say that whether I worked for PBS or not. PBS,
right. Yeah. I mean, it's the one that I feel is most balanced. And not that I don't have political opinions. I was an editorial page editor and editorial writer, so of course I've got opinions. So yeah, I think the blurring of opinion and news is not a good thing. I think that although I was an opinion writer for 8 years or so, I was a news writer for more than 30, and I do think that news stories matter more than opinion pieces. You're right; it's harder to get information. Because it's harder to get information, people fill that vacuum, and it gets filled with partisanship. And
is it because of finances? Do you think that the reason that we're seeing so much change on the local level with journalism is because of the financial impact of the digital age?
Yeah, so much of it is finances. I mean, it all comes down to money. I mean, the news business is a business. It can't survive without money. I mean, public broadcasting is great, and I'm a big fan and supporter of it. But I think the real hard-edged investigative reporting, some of it comes from ProPublica. Some of it comes from Reveal, but it's the local reporters covering City Hall who turn up the best stories. But if they're not there, they're not turning up those stories. So anyway, I worry about this. there are new models. Cal Matters, where I worked for the last 2 years, is doing a very good job of helping to cover Sacramento. Certainly, the SACB still is covering Sacramento in a very serious way. The state capitol and the LA Times is the Chronicle. So it's still getting covered. I just I wish there were more.
What is your advice to these different outlets that you have listed? What is your best advice?
God, I'm gonna. So much of it has to do with, well, one piece of advice is if you have a passion to tell stories and you're in high school or college, pursue that passion. I mean, I do think that there will always be demand for storytellers, for honest storytellers. So I don't believe journalism is dying. I do believe it's going through a big change. So.
Well, I'm honored and flattered that you took the time to be on our program today. And Dan, thank you so much for all of your hard work over the past 40 years. And I look forward to the next 40. You mentioned you were tired, but I don't think you're slowing down at all.
Yeah, no, I got a few other things to do.
And
but anyway, thanks so much.
Come back when you have the next book, okay?
All right. This has been delightful. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much. Dan Morain here, California journalist and author of Kamala's Way. Great to see you.
All right. See you now.
Take care.
Bye.